day 3 of review, one more day of review, and then Monday you guys get to take your practice test. Highly recommend Monday that you guys tune in live at 3 o'clock because it'll give you a great feel for the exact time, the 45 minutes, 25 to take the first one, and show you, exactly how you'd be uploading it, that kind of thing, and then 10 minutes for the second one, and then 5 minutes. And then Tuesday, we'll be going over the test. Wednesday, let's do it again. Thursday, go over it. And then Friday will be a wrap up of everything you've done. So as we get started today, we're going to do imperfect competition, monopolies, some game theory, some oligopolies, all the good hits. Big shout out to Ellen down there in Southern California, out in LA. She's actually teaching, she's using stuff she's learned here and teaching her academic decathlon team. So proud. At this point, she's most likely my favorite econ student, possibly of all time. Well done. And Joshua down there in Southern California, great questions you guys have, great emails. I'm glad these videos are helping you guys. I wish you all the best of luck. And then, someone else has been watching all these videos. Not sure he still tunes in, is my own father, which I know what you're saying. He's probably not taking an AP classroom because it would be odd to have him sitting next to you in class. But since he's watched most of his review videos, because I think he's bored, stuck inside, I should give him a test and see how he does on a couple free response. So that'd be a good idea. All right, maybe I'll do that. All right, so as we boogie along today, first thing I want to go over, and for those of you who are avid watchers, you know that I've already talked to you guys about this, but I want to go through this one last time to make sure everyone understands that you guys have access to all these free response. If your teacher hasn't assigned these, you don't have to wait, right? I told all my students, get on here and go through some free response. So you can go through you click on assignments, go to optional student practice right here, right? You got big yellow arrows. And if you click on the first one, unit 1 comes up, right? Martha's marginal benefit. So you type in the answer down here, and then you click submit over here, and the little box comes up, you want to submit this, you click yes. And then the key one, and this is the most important one on here, which is, would you like it to review it, how it might be scored? And that's why you're here, obviously. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so review it, and then the rubric comes up. And so what you can do is you can go through and say, you would have earned 1 point if you put the dollar in, which you did, put the dollar in. So I'd recommend. So here's what I would do. While you're watching these review videos, let's say you watch Tuesdays and you're like, unit 1 and 2, every time it's the utility maximization, right? The marginal utility per dollar of one good. Gosh, every time I mess that up, or there's something they're asking, then just click on, right, unit 2, and go through the free response, find one, do it, click submit, review, go through the rubric and see what question it is. And that'll help you guys a lot. So here we are. There's the rubric today, the old unit 4 review. Let's start right out of the gate here with what you guys are looking at. And you haven't seen, I don't think we've done one of these yet, which is a constant marginal cost. Notice it is also a constant average total cost and constant long run average total cost. The minute you see this, if you saw something like this on the test on May 20th, maybe you say to yourself, it's a constant long run. So I know it doesn't have economies of scale. These are the things that should be going through your mind before you even start looking at the questions. So let's go through here. If you're not watching this live, then you could pause right now, go ahead and get out a sheet of paper, write all your answers down, and then boom, unpause it. We'll go through the answers. On to the next one, you could pause again, right? Never going to tell you not to watch these, obviously, live, but the review things, a lot of times, I think it would be quite helpful if you had a chance to pause this and, go through this. So if you need to hop up and get a glass of water and make sure you're cozy there, just hopefully you turn off Netflix for a few minutes. By the way, great show. Whew. It's not Netflix, but the McMillions from HBO. Got an episode left. I got to find out how he did this. It is insane. So if you haven't seen that, it's a whopping 6 hours. Now, I'm not telling you to watch it like now because you have AP test coming up, but I'm also telling you it's only 6 hours. And if you're in the Midwest and it's been raining for 2 days, it definitely gives you something to do. Good stuff. All right. Ready for econ? It's been like 3 minutes. Come on, let's go. So using the numbers given in the graph, those poor kids who paused, right? If you're not watching this live, you're like, oh my gosh, is this guy going to teach today? I promise. Here we go. So using numbers given in the graph, identify each of the following for the profit maximizing monopolist. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go through, show you, right? So anytime they ask about profit maximizing or loss minimizing, right? Same thing. So you always want to go where MC equals MR. So the quantity produced would be 4, and then it is an imperfectly competitive firm, right? It's a monopoly here, so you go up to your demand curve and over for your price. So quantity 4 up to your demand curve and over, which is $40. Okay, you're all 2 for 2. Allocatively efficient quantity. So once again, that's where price equals marginal cost. Don't ask what price. Remember, demand curve is made up of all the prices people are willing and able to buy. So you go your marginal cost crosses it, and it would be a quantity of 8. Okay, right there. B, at the profit maximizing quantity, are they experiencing economies of scale? And we kind of answered this already. The answer, of course, is no, because your long run average total cost is not declining, or no, because your long run average total cost is constant, right? Economies of scale for the 17th time. As quantity increases, your long run average total cost is falling in that range. Okay, so think buying in bulk, right? When a firm gets big enough where they can start buying in bulk and it's driving down their average cost of production. That's kind of an easy way to think about it. C, assume the monopolist produces 10 units. All right, now we're out here. Okay, now notice that if we're producing 10 units, right, it should be here, but the cost is way up here. So if the price is $10, you already know what's happening. So the economic profit, and it says calculate and show your work. Am I going to guarantee you're going to have to show your work? No, but I'd be willing to bet, right? They're probably going to have you guys show your work, so you can't just throw up answers there. So it's a loss. You can tell that already. So we know the price is $10, and at the quantity of 10, so the total revenue 10 times 10, you've made $100, but it's costing you $20 every time you sell 10. So your total costs are $200. And if your revenue is only 100, that means you've lost $100. And then consumer surplus, okay? So if the price is down here at 10, then it's 60 minus 10, which is 50, times 10, right? So that's 500 divided by 2 is 250. So 1/2 base times height. So your consumer surplus, because the price is way down here, it's the big triangle, right, up there. And then deadweight loss. So it's 1/2 20 minus 10 and times 10 minus 8. Why? Because once again, deadweight loss, right? We should be producing right here, but we're producing more than we should be. So the deadweight loss, so you get it, and it's 1/2, 2 times 10. So it's 1/2 20. So the answer is 10. Okay. So we should be producing at allocated efficiency, but we're not. We're producing more. Okay. And then D, at what quantity is demand unit elastic? I like these questions. So they're asking you to know on this graph, where in your demand curve is demand elastic, unit, and then inelastic. And remember, you just go where marginal revenue is 0 and go up to your demand curve. Demand is elastic, up right to there. It's unit elastic, and then inelastic to the right. So the answer is 6. And if they said explain, you would say because it's where marginal revenue is 0. And then E, love this question, if they perfectly price discriminate and they choose a quantity that maximizes profit. So remember, if they perfectly price discriminate, they're going to produce, the last unit produced will be right here at allocated efficiency. And so you know this entire triangle, right, becomes, don't say consumer surplus, no, it becomes profit. They're charging every consumer the maximum amount. Can you imagine if you could log into my brain and figure out how much I was willing to pay to golf tomorrow? We're actually legally allowed to golf in Michigan as long as we don't get near anyone. We can't have golf carts, so I am going golfing. Imagine if the golf course knew, and they don't, thank God, because they would charge me more than I'm actually paying. Don't tell them. So they're going to take all that as profit. So the answer is 60 minus 20. You have to account for this whole thing, right? So that's 40 times the quantity of 8, which is 320. 1/2 of that is 160. So you're getting this triangle, 1/2 base times height, and then consumer surplus, easy one, 0. There is no consumer surplus. They've taken it all as profit, none. Okay. All right, good. We're going to draw 2 graphs later. because I think it's important you guys can still, I know you don't have to draw them, but I think it's really important you guys know how to draw them, know the shape of the stuff. But let's do some, good old game theory. All right, I like it. So in this case, Patrick's Pies, only pizzeria in College Town, advertised or not advertised. And then you got D's Pizza up here, which is contemplating whether to enter or stay out of the market. And then they are independently and simultaneously make a decision. So here's a payoff matrix, and they all have complete information. So let's go through this. Love the game theory. And just like before, I'll go through and show you the kind of circles, so to speak. So before you even look at the questions, let's just go through. So if Patrick's Pie is going to advertise, remember the last two numbers in every box, or excuse me, the last number, there's only two numbers, the last number in all the boxes go to D's, the first number go to Patrick. So if Patrick advertises, if D enters, he would lose, or she would lose $2. And if D stays out, they lose 0, and 0 is better than losing 2. So go ahead and circle that. And then if Patrick does not advertise, if D enters, $15, stay out, 0, so they're going to enter. So stop there, say to yourself, what do I know about D's Pizza? And what I know is they do not have a dominant strategy. They might stay out, they might enter. It all depends on what Patrick does. Okay, so let's say D enters the marketplace. Now let's see what Patrick's going to do. Okay, so if D enters, if Patrick advertises, he gets 50. If he doesn't, he gets 150. 150 is better than 50. And if D stays out, if Patrick advertises, 175. And if he doesn't, 100. So what do you know about Patrick? No dominant strategy. Okay, so A, what actions maximize the total profits for? So all you guys have to do is add up the two boxes. This is a really good question. Add up and figure out where is the highest amount of profit. So obviously, right, it's going to be in this box right here. $175 is more than anywhere else. So the answer is Patrick would advertise, D would stay out. You're just adding the numbers in the box. B, conditional on your response, part A, do they have an incentive to cheat? Explain using numbers. No. Okay, here's why. If Patrick's going to advertise and D cheats, D goes from 0 to -2. Not good. If D, who is going to stay out now, so we just said they're going to advertise and stay out. If D stays out, if Patrick cheats, he's going to go from 175 down to 100. That's not good. Okay, so you just have to figure out, all right, they're going to be up in this box. We know that, the advertise stay out box. So what's going to happen if one of them cheats? You just have to look at the other number. And I know these can get confusing, but just remember, if D stays out, you're going down in this column right here, and Patrick's numbers are the first in each box, okay? C, does Patrick's Pie have a dominant strategy? No. If they said explain why, well, because, and you would say, right, because if D does this, then Patrick could do that, but if D does this, blah, blah. D, identify the Nash Equilibria, because of course there's two of them. So you would say Patrick advertises, D stays out, or Patrick does not advertise and D enters. Those are the two Nash Equilibria. And then E, ignoring antitrust considerations, suppose that Patrick pays D's Pizzeria at $20. Now, this one's a little tricky for you guys because Patrick's going to take money from his profits and give them to D's Pizzeria if D stays out of the market. So now you have to redraw it, okay? And this is where, so it's going to look like this, right? And if you go through, it says, so originally, this was 50 and -2, right? It's only if D stays out of the marketplace. So it's not going to affect anything on this side because on this side, D's already entered. It says Patrick pays D $20 if D stays out. So now you're looking over here. So this was 175 and 0. So we took 20 from Patrick and gave it to D. And this was 100 and 0. And so now we're going to take $20 from 100. Now it's 80 and give it to D, gets 20. So let's now run through and see what's going to happen. So here's Patrick advertises. If D enters, -2, stays out, $20. 20 is better than -2. If Patrick does not advertise, D enters 15, D stays out. So now what do you notice? D now has a dominant strategy to always stay out of the marketplace. It has changed. And then if D enters, If Patrick advertises 50, does not advertise 150. And then if D stays out, if Patrick advertises 155, doesn't advertise, okay? And so what you'll notice is now you can figure out what the Nash equilibrium is going to be. And it says in this, E2 says, identify the Nash equilibrium, and you would say Patrick would advertise and D would stay out. And for those of you who are wondering how, because D is always going to stay out. And since D is always going to stay out of the marketplace, 155 is better than 80, so Patrick is going to advertise. Okay, so let's do one more of those because we're not going to do another one, right? I mean, this is the review. So we got to go to, oh, my favorite, man. So there's our Nash equilibrium right there, 2 circles in it, okay? We're going out to Hawaii to visit Rankin Wheels. And so let's look at this. And once again, right, these are, and by the way, right, you always have to read the instructions because a lot of times, I told you guys this a couple different videos, but all the information is going to be given to you. So these, let's see here, the payoff matrix daily profit in the second cell is Rankin's daily profit. So you're looking at daily profits, right? Make sure it never says something like these are the losses or something like that, right? So if Roadway comes early, if Rankin comes in early, that's 900. If Rankin comes in late, 850, Rankin's going to come in early. And if Roadway is late, if Rankin's early, 650, late 800. So Colonel does not have, okay, Rankin Wheels does not have a dominant strategy. Now, if Rankin comes in early, Roadway comes in early, they get 1,000, late 750, so they're early. And if Rankin comes in late, 950 is better than 700. So now you know that Roadway is always going early. Perfect. Now you can jump to the questions. So A, in what market structure they operate? It's an oligopoly. How do you know? Don't write down because there's 2 firms or there's only a few. Like, they're interdependent is what the readers want to see, right? How do we know that? Because Roadway depends on what Rankin's going to do. Rankin depends on what Roadway is going to do, blah, blah. B, if Roadway chooses early, which departure time is better for Rankin? So we just did that, and the answer is early. C, dominant strategy for Roadway, early. We just did that. So see how these questions can come really quick once you do all the work. D, is choosing early a dominant strategy for Rankin? Now listen, I'm never going to say 100% of the time, but do you think that the College Board would ask you a question, is this a dominant strategy? Explain, if the answer is yes, because what would your explanation be? Because it is? Like, typically if they're asking, is this a dominant strategy, and explain, well, then it's probably not, and they want you to explain why it's not, okay? So the answer, no, and it's because, so they're asking, is choosing early dominant for Rankin? If Roadway goes early, right, Rankin will go early because 900 is better than 850, but if Roadway goes late, Rankin goes late. So that's what you'd say, okay? Roadway goes late, Rankin also goes late, therefore early is not Rankin's dominant strategy. And E, if both firms know all the information in the payoff matrix but do not cooperate, what will Rankin make? So you know that Roadway's always going to go early. When they say they don't cooperate, what they mean is they're not forming a cartel or they're not colluding and saying, hey, look, let's pick something better for us. Okay, they're just saying they're going to do this. So because Roadway is always going early, Rankin has to go early, and therefore Rankin's always going to end up with $900. He's going to buy a kayak and kayak around the Pacific out in Hawaii, and it's actually what he does. All right, lovely, lovely stuff. Moving on, let's get to a natural monopoly. So this is a bridge, costs and revenues for a bridge to a popular island. Marginal cost of crossing the bridge, 0. I'll tell you this, I've given this for a number of years to students, and one of the things they don't even notice the marginal cost unless they go back and read that, right? They just, it's like they're looking all over the place for it. It's a marginal cost of 0. There is no additional cost. The example I gave to you guys was once you've paid for a buffet, right? What is the additional cost to go back to the buffet once you've eaten? Well, there is no additional cost. It's already paid for, right? That's sunk cost. So we might overuse, right? So maybe they're overusing this bridge. So assume a private firm owns the bridge and maximizes profits. Based on the diagram, tell me the output and price. Okay, so once again, right? You guys know output, right? You go where MC, marginal cost, crosses marginal revenue. It's right there at Q2. And for price, go up to your demand curve and over, and it's $7. So MC equals MR right there. And now assume a municipality, city, owns the bridge and sets the price to achieve allocative efficiency. So once again, right? And don't say in your AP test, it's where your marginal cost crosses your demand curve, right? It's a little better if you say it's where your price equals marginal cost or your marginal benefit equals your marginal cost. I know you're saying the same thing, but it's a little more econ-y. And so you're going right here where marginal cost equals your price. And so output Q4 price 0. Okay, so allocated efficiency means you're not charging anyone any money to go over. C, the price of $1. Are the accounting profits positive, negative, or 0? Okay, so at the price of $1, you go out to your demand curve and notice that is right where your average total cost crosses, meaning price equals average total cost. So the first thought is they're making 0 economic profit. Please don't write that down, right? I mean, you can start there, but that's not your answer. They asked about accounting profit. If you're making 0 economic profit, then the answer is accounting profit is positive, because to get economic profit, you take total revenue and you subtract your explicit and implicit cost. So what's left over? That opportunity cost. So if I make 0 economic profit, my accountant doesn't do my taxes and say, great news, Mr. Pedlow, you don't owe the federal government any money, right? I still have accounting profit because my opportunity cost of teaching is I could be doing something. It's the next best alternative. And some of you might say, buddy, your next best job, who knows what it would be, cleaning up at the Tiger Zoo out there in Oklahoma, something, I don't know. So therefore, the accountant doesn't look at that. They don't care what my opportunity cost is. They're looking at the money I made. So it's positive, okay? And the explanation is because you would have to subtract out your implicit cost from total revenues. And then D, suppose your municipality sets a break-even price that generates revenues just to cover all of its economic cost. Okay, what does break-even price mean? If you remember your monopoly graph, once again, your break-even, your fair return rate, it's where price equals average total cost. So it's right here at Q3. We were just there because that's where price equals average total cost. At the output is demand, relatively elastic, relatively inelastic, blah. Well, remember, go where marginal revenue crosses your x-axis or marginal revenue is 0, go up to your demand curve, and everything this way to the right is relatively inelastic. So Q3 is definitely relatively inelastic. And then E, if a company begins to provide access to the island via commercial watercraft, what happens to each of the following? The demand for bridge crossings. Okay. So now instead of taking the bridge, you can get over there on a boat. So demand for bridge crossings, we know, is definitely going to fall. And what would that do to the output? Well, if demand falls, then your marginal revenue must also fall, right? They shift together. Why? Because if demand falls, it drives down price. So every additional one you sell is getting less and less. And therefore, your marginal revenue would hit your marginal cost somewhere back here. So output would fall. And then F, suppose the long run average total cost is strictly downward sloping. Would it be efficient to build a second bridge? So if it's downward sloping, what are you experiencing? Economies of scale. Economies of scale, right? A natural monopoly exists because one firm can supply all the goods more efficiently than if you added a second firm, which is why those of you who are sitting there watching this with your Wi-Fi at home, you're paying a company to do that. If it's a cable company, you don't have a choice of cable companies. They have regions. So in Michigan, we get Comcast. If you live out in the country, you might have some like Charter and some of the smaller ones. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in my house, I have one. If I want cable, I call Comcast. If I don't want cable, I can go with a dish or something like that, or a cell phone, right? Why? Because if another firm came in and entered the marketplace, cost would skyrocket. They'd be fighting over resources. Competition means price would fall. They'd both be losing money. One of them would go out of business and we'd be right back where we started. So it's inefficient. And so you would say it would not be efficient because it would raise your average total cost of production, right? Which is exactly what would happen. Feeling good about the natural monopolies? So far we've gotten oligopolies and natural monopolies, and then a monopoly graph. So let's continue on. All right, time for an easy one, right? This is you don't need to pause on this one. We can do this one together because most of you are going to do splendid on this. And then we have 2 that we're going to draw graphs, and then that's it. It's Thursday afternoon. I have 4 students who are prepping for the national semis for the personal finance challenge. So they won for the state of Michigan. So Friday they're testing. So I have to be quick because I know all four are, well, three of them. One of them got fives and she double nickel last year. So the other three are watching this and then they got to get back to studying personal finance. Hopefully they are. So suppose the firm produces at the profit maximizing output. Using labeling, identify each of the following. Once again, profit maximizing, where MC equals MR. So here we are right here. So Q2, explain, it's where MC hits MR. Perfect explanation. Price, go up, P5. If they said explain, you say, you move up to your demand curve for price. Okay, that's totally fine. Suppose the firm produces at the revenue maximizing output. Once again, that's where marginal revenue is zero. That's where you maximize total revenue. And so you'd say Q3, Y, it's when marginal revenue is zero. In price, you'd go up to your demand curve. Now, I will say, I noticed this one is kind of tough to read. There's a lot on this graph, right? I think it's P3. Yeah, you go up to demand and over. It looks like it's P3 right there, which it is. C, suppose the government regulates a firm to produce the allocatively efficient level of output. Let me just move me. There we go. And using labeling, so allocated efficiency, where price equals marginal cost. So go under marginal cost to hit your demand curve. So the price would be P1. The quantity would be Q4. So easy one right there, right where it's going. And then D, suppose they produce there, is it earning a profit or a loss? Well, that's the issues with natural monopolies is if you force them to produce it allocatively efficient, they're losing money. So it's a loss and it says explain because your average total cost is greater than price, right? The price is P2 if you stay on this quantity, or P1, excuse me. And if you stay on this quantity, your average total cost is P2, right? So the average total cost is greater than the price. And then, sorry, the type is tiny in here. And I'm kind of getting old. Using the labeling, identify the area of profit or loss. Okay, so it's P2, E, G, P1. This box right here. Because at this quantity, your price is P1, but your cost is P2, your average cost. So it's P2, E, G, P1. And then E, using labeling, identify consumer surplus. Okay, so if you're producing Q4 and it's P1, it's everything above that. So P7, G, P1, right? It's this whole triangle right here because that's your price. And then F says, suppose regulators establish a price that allows the firm to cover all of its opportunity cost, identify the price they would set. Okay, what does that mean? That means that you're going to be right where price equals average total cost, or what we call zero economic profit. You're covering all of your opportunity costs. So where is that? You go right where average total cost crosses, and it looks like that's P3 right there, okay? So far, so good, right? Besides like tiny type. Hopefully you guys are feeling pretty good about this. Hopefully at this point, your graphs, you've watched enough of these, right? Your teachers, I'm sure, have taught you great. They've gone through all these graphs with you guys, all the points in the graph, so you know where productively efficient is and allocatively efficient and fair return and where you maximize total revenue and where your demand curve is elastic and where consumer surplus and where your deadweight losses and all these things that rattle right off. Because if you guys know all that, then you're golden, right? Absolutely golden. All right. You will need one of these. You will need a sheet of paper to draw. So let's go to Gigantic. It's a great name for a pharmaceutical company, by the way. They have a patent on a prescription drug, making it, so patent, right? Barrier to entry, you know it's going to be a monopoly, making the only manufacturer, so it is a monopoly, they're the only one selling the good, and they're earning positive profit. So draw the graph. So let's go ahead and draw the graph, then we'll come back and answer B and C together. All righty. It's going to be a little easier to read. There we go. So it says, label your quantity where MC equals MR, make your lines down, and it says to label that QG. Okay, go up. For your price, label this PG. Right, and I know, once again, I'm well aware you're not going to have to draw all these. It's good for you guys to know all the points in this. And then average total cost, label ATC. What am I looking for on this? That it's below my price and that marginal cost is going through the bottom of it. And if they ask why on the AP test is marginal cost going through the bottom, because if it's below right? It's pulling your average total cost down. As soon as it goes above, it's pulling your average total cost up. Once again, Larry Bird, foul shops, let that sink in. An area representing consumer surplus, shaded completely. So if this is our price, consumer surplus. So remember, these people are willing to pay, but they only pay this price, these people. So the whole thing gets shaded. Boom, there we go. Easy, easy, that's it. And that's all you have to draw. So let's leave that for right now. And we'll go back and let's look at B and C on this thing. All right, B, suppose demand for prescription drugs, increases, and they hire their workers in a perfectly competitive labor market. That's what we get to talk about tomorrow. So we're getting a jump on tomorrow. I will tell you, I think kids understand on average monopolies and oligopoly and game theory and stuff pretty well. Labor markets for some reason. Part of it this year will be interesting because if you guys are taking the second semester, your teachers probably did not have time to get to labor markets. So the more we can do of this, the better it is for you. So demand for prescription drugs increases. Think to yourself, stop reading, think. When demand increases, what happens to price? If demand for something increases, price increases, right? Easy stuff. They hire the workers in a perfectly competitive labor market. What happens to demand for workers? Okay, what is another word for demand for workers? In a perfectly competitive firm, it's called marginal revenue product. That's what our demand for labor is. How do you get your marginal revenue product in a perfectly competitive firm? Marginal product times price. Now your brain just got done telling you when demand increases, price increases. So if price increases, that means MRP increased, and since MRP is the demand for labor, demand for workers must increase. And where it says explain, you could actually write out because MRP equals MP times P. And so if P increases, MRP must increase. That's okay, right? I think it was Dan reached out and asked about, which is actually a really good question. How much abbreviation can you do? So what I told him is what I'll tell you guys. On the macro test, a lot of your teachers probably got pretty used to having you guys abbreviate. So like, especially with CPI stuff, right? You would say something like, it's C plus I plus G plus NX. So if it said like, what happens to interest rates? And you said interest rates fall with an arrow, and then an uppercase I increases, and your teachers probably said, that's fine on the AP test. Mike's a little bit different. On micro, you don't want to abbreviate as much. I would write out some stuff, but in something like this, like an MRP equals MP times P, totally fine. The reader knows that you actually are very intelligent and you know exactly what you're talking about. So that's okay. Little tip. B2, what happens to the wage rate? It's a perfectly competitive labor market. Wage is constant, right? So it's going to no change, remain the same. C, after their patent, because it's asking about this firm, theirs, not in the market, just gigantics. And then C, after their patent expires, another firm enters the drug market, produces an identical drug that sells for a lower price. That's called a generic drug, of course. C1, what will happen to their producer surplus? Okay, another prescription drug company comes in and enters the market for the same drug. That's not demand now, that's a supply shift. Supply increases, you guys know this, price falls. If price falls, what happens to producer surplus? It falls. And then C2, what will happen to consumer surplus? Well, if prices are falling, producer surplus is going to fall, consumer surplus is going to increase. And the explanation would be because price fell and quantity increased. So you're getting more for a cheaper price, therefore your consumer surplus is going to increase. Okay, that's why we like generic drugs in the marketplace, right? The example I think we used was like Advil and CVS ibuprofen, right? Exact same thing. I don't know. Does it work? Yes. Is it cheaper? Yes. Right. So these drug companies, we give them patents, the barrier to entry, so they can be looking for the next big thing. We talked all about that, right? How 99% of scientists never find a cure for something, but they're always looking, right? Fascinating stuff. All right. Last one of the day. You ready? Last one. Easy to think about this. You're 75% of the way done with review after this next one. That's it. We're not asking too much. You guys are going to do well, I hope. So here we go. because we haven't touched on the last one today, which is monopolistic competition. So I found this one. We're going to draw. So it says draw a correct equilibrium graph showing the typical monopolistically competitive firm in long-run equilibrium. Show price, quantity, allocative, and productively efficient. And then I don't think you need the graph for CDE. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw it, and then we'll come back and answer the last ones. Okay, so here we go. It is a monopolistically competitive firm. So once again, price, quantity, the usual, demand, marginal revenue. Now, think to yourselves, right? What do you know about monopolistic in the long run? That because there's such low or no barriers to entry, firms can enter the marketplace until you have zero economic profit. So it says, label the price P, label the quantity Q, show allocatively efficient level, and label it Q1. So right out of the gate, just go ahead and do this. There we go, Q1. All right, we just got another point, and you're cruising. And then it says productively efficient. We can't answer that one yet, okay? Because we need an average total cost. That's what makes a monopolistically competitive firm in the long run unique. So they're at zero economic profit. So it's going to be tangent to the demand curve. No, you don't need to make a dot. I'm just showing you that there. And then make sure your marginal cost is going through the bottom. So I like to do it just like that. Not going to lie, for those of you who have been with me, I'm very proud. This might be the nicest and best penmanship that I've had for a while. So kind of exciting. And then it says, label the productively efficient level of output Q2. Where is productively efficient? Think, where is it most efficient to produce? At the bottom of ATC, right? So you would make your dotted lines down if you had to draw, and I know it's really close, and that's okay. Okay, this is probably a bear to grade at the reading. Q2, sorry, not Z, Q2 right there. Okay, productively efficient, bottom of ATC. And then are they making a positive accounting profit? Once again, yes, because they're at zero economic profit. And so you would subtract out your opportunity cost. So that's the key thing for you guys to know is monopolistic firm in the long run, price equals average total cost right here. Also make sure that's going through the bottom, and then everything else looks good. All right, let's finish up C, D, and E and be out of here today. All righty. We are perfect. All right. So Natalia, if you're getting coffee, we got about 2 minutes left. All right. Suppose over the long run, the Gobble Company, and it's quite the name, I like it, in a different industry, continues to make significantly higher economic profit than firm Z and most other firms. What must be true in order for them to make more economic profit than firms in other industries? Okay. Think before you just rush to answer this. Just stop and think for a second. What must be true? They're making more profit than other firms. Then there must be high barriers to entry. There must be something that's preventing other firms from entering that marketplace, right? And so I don't want to say it's an easy one, but once you say it, you're like, yeah, that totally makes sense, right? If there are high barriers to entry, I can't, we used this example before, right? I can't enter the airline industry, right? As an oligopolistic, quite high barriers to entry. I do not have the money to just build a plane and slap a name on the side of it and then start just buying runway space and renting it out at airports. And like, think about this. I don't want to hire labor. And because that barrier to entry, they would make more profit than a monopolistic firm would. Okay. So there'd be high barriers to entry. D, suppose that firm Y, I know we've gone from firm Z and now we're on firm Y. That's okay. Raises the price of its product, which then increases the demand for firm Z's product. Once again, if you increase demand, price increases. If the price increases for firm Y, and then you see an increase in the demand for firm Z, right? Why would that? It's because there's substitutes. So firm Y raises the price of their goods. Say there's an increase in demand, price goes up. Then people rush out and buy firm Z's product because there's substitutes. E, assume firm Z discovers a new way to display its product that takes customers away from its competitors. What effect would this have on profits in the short run? So if they're getting their product out there in a different way, that's going to increase the demand, which drives up the price. And so this is, they're going to increase their profits in the short run. Now they just said short run, right? Not long run, short run. So once the price goes up, the firm's loving this. They're going to make all this extra money coming in. And so E2, assume that in time, competitors copy their new display. What effect would this have? And if you want to just quickly say to yourself, well, let's start falling, let's be better than that. Let's be more precise. And let's say it falls to 0, which is the actual answer. And the reason is because due to profit, firms enter, which causes demand to fall, which causes the price to fall until you're at 0 economic profit. What do you think? We hit oligopoly. We did game theory. We hit monopolistic in the long run. We hit monopoly. We hit natural monopoly. I think we hit the normal monopoly. I think we've like hit them all in unit 4, which is good. So tomorrow we have 6 or 7 free response, all based on labor markets. And for those of you who might have gotten, excused from school before you started labor markets, tomorrow's going to be a big day. And then once again, I will finish with Watch Monday. Watch Monday. And then the very last thing, don't turn it off. The very last thing for today, your teachers are probably sending out this information to you guys, but you're probably getting emails from the College Board as well. There is an email that is recently come out this week that shows you what you need to do, right? All the steps you need to take to sit down for this AP test. You have to know your AP number. You have to have this. Look that over. I told my students to print it off, have that sitting with them. So when they take, there's nothing to confuse them, because you got to be there 30 minutes early and put all that information in. You're going to be given a ticket to get exam ticket. You're going to get in there and then you have all that time. So look for that email. Make sure you're getting this communication, okay, with your teacher or through the College Board. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have a fine afternoon on a Thursday afternoon, and I will see you again tomorrow for unit 5, the last unit that will be asked in the AP test. So have a good afternoon, take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.